Chapter 15, wherein it appears that joy is nothing more than sorrow in another form. All these longings were to be gratified before the end of the week, but their gratification was destined to leave those who had formed them more unhappy and more melancholy than ever. Such is the universal law. Every joy contains a germ of sorrow. In the first place, Gervais ceased to laugh in Yak Aubrey's face, a change most ardently desired by the student, as the reader will remember. Yak Aubrey had discovered the golden fetters which would bind the damsel to his chariot. They consisted in a lovely ring carved by Benvenuto himself, and representing 2 clasped hands. It should be said that, since the day of the siege, Yak Aubrey had conceived a warm friendship for the outspoken and energetic nature of the Florentine artist. He did not interrupt him when he was speaking, an unheard-of thing. He kept his eyes fixed upon him and listened to him with respect, which was more than he had ever consented to do for his professors. He admired his work with an enthusiasm which, if not very enlightened, was at least very warm and sincere. On the other hand, his loyalty, his courage, and his jovial disposition attracted Cellini. He was just strong enough at tennis to make a good fight, but to lose in the end. He was his match at table, within a bottle. In short, he and the goldsmith had become the best friends in the world, and Cellini, generous because his wealth was inexhaustible, had one day forced him to accept this little ring, which was carved with such marvelous skill that, in default of the apple, it would have tempted Eve and sown discord between Pellis and Thetis. On the morrow of the day, when the ring passed from Yak Aubrey's hands to those of Gervais, Gervais resumed a serious demeanor, and the student hoped that she was his. Poor fool! On the contrary, he was hers. Scotsone succeeded, as she desired, in kindling a spark of jealousy in Benvenuto's heart. This is how it came about. One evening, when her wiles and coquetries had as usual failed to arouse the master from his imperturbable gravity, she assumed a solemn expression herself. "Benvenuto," said she, "it seems to me, do you know, as if you had forgotten your promise to me." "What promise is that, my dear child?" rejoined Benvenuto, apparently seeking an explanation of her reproach from the ceiling. "Haven't you promised 100 times to marry me?" "I don't remember it." "You don't remember it?" "No, I should say that my only reply was, 'This requires consideration.'" "Well, have you considered it?" "Yes." "With what result?" "That I am still too young to be anything else than your lover, Scotsone. We will speak of it again later. And I am no longer foolish enough, monsieur, to be content with so vague a promise as that, and to wait for you forever. Do as you please, little one, and if you are in so great a hurry, go ahead. But what prejudice have you against marriage? After all, why need it make any change in your life? You will have made a poor girl, who loves you, happy, that's all." "What change will it make in my life, Scotsone?" said Benvenuto gravely. "You see yonder candle, whose pale flame but feebly lights this great room where we are. I place an extinguisher over it, and now it is quite dark. Marriage would do the same to my life. Light the candle again. Scotsone, I detest the darkness." "I understand," cried Scotsone volubly, bursting into tears. "You bear too illustrious a name to give to a poor girl, a nobody, who has given you her heart and her life, all that she had to give, and is ready to suffer everything for you, who lives only in your life, who loves only you." "I know it, Scotsone, and I assure you that I am as grateful as possible." "Who has gladly done her best to enliven your solitude, who, knowing your jealous disposition, never looks at the cavalcades of handsome archers and sergeants, who has always closed her ears to the soft words which she has not failed to hear, nevertheless, even here." "Even here?" rejoined Benvenuto. "Yes, here, even here. Do you understand?" "Scotsone," cried Benvenuto, "it's not one of my comrades, I trust, who has dared so to insult his master. He would marry me if I would let him," continued Scotsone, attributing Cellini's wrath to a rejuvenescence of his love for her. "Scotsone, tell me the insolent varlet's name. It's not Ascanio, I hope." "There is a man who has said to me more than 100 times, 'Catherine, the master abuses you. He will never marry you, sweet and pretty as you are. He is too proud for that. Oh, if he loved you as I love you, or if he would love me as you love him. Give me his name, the traitor's name, cried Benvenuto. But I simply would not listen to him, continued Scotzone, enchanted at the success of his stratagem. On the contrary, all his soft words were wasted, and I threatened to tell you all if he kept on. I loved only you. I was blind, and the gallant got nothing by his fine speeches and his languishing looks. Oh, put on your indifferent air, and pretend not to believe me. It is all true, none the less. I do not believe you, Scotzone, said Benvenuto, who saw that, if he desired to know his rival's name, he must employ a very different method from any he had hitherto attempted. What? You don't believe me? No. You think that I am lying. I think that you are mistaken. In your opinion, then, it's not possible for anyone to love me. I don't say that. But you think it. Benvenuto smiled, for he saw that he had found a way to make Catherine speak. But there is someone who loves me, and that's the truth, continued Scotzone. Benvenuto made another gesture, indicating incredulity. He loves me more than you ever loved me, more than you ever will love me, monsieur. Do you understand? Benvenuto began to laugh heartily. I am very curious to know who this gallant Meta is, he said. His name is not Meta, retorted Catherine. What then? Midas. Nor Amadis. His name is Gala. His name is Pagolo, if you must know. Aha! So it's Monsieur Pagolo, muttered Cellini. Yes, it's Monsieur Pagolo, rejoined Scotzone, wounded by the contemptuous tone in which Cellini uttered his rival's name. A boy of good family, sedate, quiet, devout, and who would make a most excellent husband. Is that your opinion, Scotzone? Yes, it is my opinion. And yet you have never given him any hope. I have never listened to him. Oh, I was a great fool. But after this, you are right. Scotzone, you should listen to him and reply to him. How so? What's that you say? I bid you listen when he speaks to you of love, and not turn him away. I will attend to the rest. But, never fear, I have my plan. Allah born you, but I hope you don't propose to punish him very severely. Poor devil, he acts as if he were confessing his sins when he says, I love you. Play him a trick, if you choose, but not with your sword. I ask mercy for him. You will be content with my vengeance, Scotzone, for it will turn to your advantage. In what way? It will help to gratify one of your fondest desires. What do you mean, Benvenuto? That is my secret. Oh, if you knew what an absurd figure he cuts when he tries to be tender, said the volatile creature, incapable of remaining sad 5 minutes in succession. And so, naughty man, you are still interested to know whether anyone is paying court to your giddy girl? You do still love poor Scotzone a little? Yes, but do not fail to follow the instructions I give you in regard to Pagolo to the letter. Oh, don't be afraid. I can play a part as well as another. It won't be long before he will say to me, Catherine, are you still cruel? And I will reply, What? Again, Monsieur Pagolo. But in a not very indignant tone, you understand, encouraging rather. When he sees that I am no longer harsh, he will think he has conquered the world. But what shall you do to him, Benvenuto? When shall you begin to take your revenge upon him? Will it be long drawn out and very amusing? Shall we laugh? Yes, we shall laugh, Benvenuto replied, and you will always love me. Benvenuto imprinted an assenting kiss upon her forehead, the best of all answers, since it answers for everything without answering for anything. Poor Scotzone did not suspect that Cellini's kiss was the beginning of his vengeance. The Vicomte de Marmain's wish that he might find Benvenuto alone was also gratified. This is how it came about. Spurred on by the provost's anger, goaded by the memory of Madame d'Etampes' disdain, and influenced above all by his inordinate avarice, the Viscount, having resolved to attack the lion in his den with the aid of his 2 spuri, selected for his enterprise St. Elo's Day, when the studio was likely to be deserted, as it was a holiday in the Goldsmiths' Guild. He was proceeding along the quay, with his head high and his heart beating fast, his two bravos walking 10 steps behind him. "Well, well," said a voice at his side, "here's a fine young gentleman on amorous conquest bent, with his valorous bearing for the lady and his too spurry for the husband." Mammain turned, thinking that some one of his friends was speaking to him, but he saw only a stranger who was going in the same direction as himself, but whom in his absorption he had failed to observe. "I'll wager that I have guessed the truth, my fair sir," continued the stranger. "I will bet my purse against yours, without knowing what it contains, that you are out on some such errand." "Oh, tell me nothing. It's one's duty to be circumspect in love. My own name is Jack Aubrey, my profession, student, and I am on my way at present to an appointment with my sweetheart, Gervase Philippot, a pretty girl, but, between ourselves, of appalling virtue, which suffered shipwreck, however, upon a certain ring. To be sure, the ring was a jewel, and a jewel of marvelous workmanship, nothing less than one of Benvenuto Cellini's own. Until then, the Vicomte de Mamain had hardly listened to the confidences of his loquacious interlocutor, and had been careful not to reply. But his interest was aroused by the name of Benvenuto Cellini, one of Benvenuto Cellini's carvings. The devil, that's a royal gift for a student to make. "Oh, pray understand, my dear Baron, are you Baron, Count, or Viscount?" "Viscount," said Mamain, biting his lips at the impertinent familiarity with which the student assumed to address him, but anxious to find out if he could not procure some valuable information from him. "Pray understand, my dear Viscount, that I did not buy it. No, although I'm an artist in my way, I don't put my money into such trifles. Benvenuto himself gave it to me in acknowledgment of my lending him a hand last Sunday to take the Grand Nestle from the Provost." "Then you're Cellini's friend?" Mamain inquired. "His most intimate friend, Viscount, and I glory in it. Between ourselves is a friendship for life and death. Doubtless you also know him." "Yes." "You are very fortunate. A sublime genius, is he not, my dear fellow? Pardon me, I say, my dear fellow, but it's simply my way of speaking. Besides, I think that I am nobly born, too. At least my mother used to tell my father so whenever he beat her. However, I am, as I told you, the admirer, the confidant, the brother of the great Benvenuto Cellini, and consequently a friend to his friends, and a foe to his foes, for my sublime goldsmith doesn't lack foes. In the first place, Madame d'Etampes; secondly, the Provost of Paris, the old villain; and thirdly, a certain Vicomte de Mamain, a great, lanky creature, whom you perhaps know, and who proposes, so they say, to take possession of the Grand Nestle. Pardieu, he'll have a warm reception." "Benvenuto has heard of his claim, has he?" queried Mamain, beginning to take a very decided interest in the student's conversation. "He has been warned. But, hold, I must not tell you, so that the aforesaid Mamain may receive the chastisement he deserves. From what you say, I judge that Benvenuto is on his guard." "On his guard? Why, Benvenuto is always on his guard. He has come within an ace of being assassinated, I don't know how many times, but, thank God, he has always come safely out of it." "What do you mean by on his guard?" "Oh, I don't mean that he is a garrison, as that old poltroon of a provost had. No, quite the contrary. Indeed, he is entirely alone at this moment, as all the fellows have gone to Vanvres for a holiday. I was to go myself, and play a game of tennis with him. Dear Benvenuto! Unluckily, Gervais' convenience conflicted with a great artist, and naturally, as you will agree, I gave the preference to Gervais." "In that case, I will take your place with Benvenuto," said Mamain. "Do so. It will be a meritorious action on your part. Go, my dear Viscount, and say to Benvenuto from me that he will see me this evening. 3 knocks, rather loud, is the signal, you know." He adopted that precaution on account of that great oaf of a Mamain, who is likely, so he imagines, to try to play him some scurvy trick. Do you know this Vicomte de Mamain? "No." "Ah, so much the worse. You might have described him to me. What for? So that I might suggest a little game with clubs to him, if I should fall in with him. I don't know why it is, but although I never saw him, do you know I particularly detest your Mamain, my dear fellow, and if he ever falls in my way, I propose to pummel him in fine shape. But pardon me, here we are at the Augustines, and I am compelled to leave you. By the way, what is your name, my friend? The Viscount walked away as if he did not hear the question. Aha, said Aubrey. It seems it would prefer to remain incog. That's the purest chivalry, or I don't know myself. As you please, my dear Viscount, as you please. And Aubrey thrust his hands in his pockets and strutted down Rue de Batwile, at the end of which Gervais lived, whistling a student song. The Vicomte de Mamain continued his journey toward the Grand Nestle. Benvenuto was in fact alone, as Aubrey had said. Ascanio had wandered away, I know not where, to dream. Catherine had gone with Ruperta to visit one of her friends, and all the workmen and apprentices were holiday-making at Vanvers. The master was in the garden working at the clay model of his gigantic statue of Mars, whose colossal head could see the Louvre over the roofs of the Grand Nestle, when little John, who was on guard at the door for the day, deceived by Mamain's manner of knocking, took him for a friend and admitted him with his two spurri. If Benvenuto did not, like Titian, work with his coat of mail upon his back, he did, like Salvator Rosa, work with his sword at his side and his carbine within reach of his hand. Mamain therefore quickly discovered that life had gained very little by surprising him. He had simply surprised an armed man. The Viscount did not even try to dissemble his bravado born of poltroonery. And when Cellini, in an imperative tone which called for an immediate reply, demanded why he had come upon his premises, "I have no business with you," was his answer. "I am the Vicomte de Mamain. I am the King's secretary, and here is an order from His Majesty," he added, holding a paper above his head, "which allots a portion of the Grand Nestle to me. I am here to make provision for arranging to my taste that portion of the hotel which is allotted to me and which I shall occupy henceforth." With that, Mamain, still followed by his two spurri, stalked toward the door of the chateau. Benvenuto seized his carbine, which was, as we have said, within his reach, and with one bound stood in front of the door on the stoop. "Halt where you are," he cried in a terrible voice, stretching out his right arm in Mamain's direction. "One step more, and you're dead, man." The Viscount at once stopped short, although after these preliminaries we might perhaps have anticipated a desperate conflict. But they are men to whom is given the power to strike terror to other men's hearts. There is an indescribable something in their look, their gestures, their attitude, as in the look, the gestures, and the attitude of the lion. The air about them is instinct with awe. Their power is felt afar off. When they stamp upon the ground, clench their fists, knit their brows, or inflate their nostrils, the boldest hesitate to attack them. A wild beast, whose young are attacked, has but to bristle up and breathe noisily to make the assailant tremble. The men of whom we speak are living dangers. Valiant hearts recognize their like in them, and go straight forward to meet them, despite their secret emotion. But the weak, the timid, the cowardly recoil at sight of them. Now Mamain, as the reader has discovered, was not a valiant heart, and Benvenuto had all the appearance of a living danger. And so when the Viscount heard the redoubtable goldsmith's voice, and observed the imperial gesture of the arm extended toward him, he realized that death for himself and his two spurri lay dormant in the carbine, the sword, and the dagger with which he was armed. Furthermore, little Jehan, seeing that his master was threatened, had armed himself with a pike. Mamain felt that his game was up, and that he would be only too fortunate if he could extricate himself safe and sound from the wasp's nest he had stumbled upon. It's all right, Messiah Goldsmith," he said. "All that we wanted was to know whether you were or were not disposed to obey His Majesty's orders. You scoff at them, and refuse to abide by them. Very good. We shall apply to someone who will find a way to compel their execution. But do not hope that we shall do ourselves the honor of bargaining with you." "Bonsoir." "Bonsoir," said Benvenuto, with his hearty laugh. "Jehan, show these gentlemen out." The Viscount and his two spurri shamefacedly retreated from the Grand Nestle, cowed by one man and shown out by a mere boy. Such was the lamentable result of the fulfillment of the Viscount's wish. If only I could find Benvenuto alone. As he had been even more cruelly treated by fate in the matter of his desires than Jack Aubrey and Scott's who did not even yet detect the irony of destiny, our valorous Viscount was furious. Madame d'Etampes was right, he said to himself, and I am fain to follow the advice she gave me. I must break my sword and sharpen my dagger. This devil of a man is just what he is said to be, very intolerant and not at all agreeable. I saw it written plainly enough in his eyes, that if I took another step I was a dead man. But in every lost cause there is a possibility of revenge. Look well to yourself, Master Benvenuto. Look well to yourself. He proceeded to lay the blame upon his companions, who were tried men, however, and would have asked nothing better than to earn their money honestly, by slaying or being themselves slain. In retiring, they had simply obeyed their master's orders. They promised to give a better account of themselves in an ambuscade. But as Marmain, to shield his own honor, claimed that the check he had met with was due to them, he informed them that he did not propose to accompany them in their next undertaking, and that they must go through with it alone as best they could. It was the very thing they most desired. Having enjoined silence upon them concerning their recent experience, he called upon the provost of Paris, and informed him that he had concluded that the surest way to avoid all suspicion was to postpone Benvenuto's punishment until some day when, as frequently happened, he ventured into a lonely, deserted street with a considerable sum of money, or some valuable piece of his handiwork. Then it would be believed that he had been murdered by robbers. It now remains for us to see how the wishes of Madame d'Etampes, Ascanio, and Cellini were gratified to their increased sorrow. Chapter 16a Court. Meanwhile, Ascanio had completed the design for his lily, and, perhaps from mere curiosity, perhaps under the influence of the magnet which attracts the wretched to those who sympathize with them, he at once repaired to the Hotel d'Etampes. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and just at that hour the Duchess was sitting upon her throne, surrounded by a veritable court. But similar orders to those which were given at the Louvre relating to Benvenuto were given at the Hotel d'Etampes for Ascanio. He was therefore at once escorted to a reception room, and his arrival was made known to the Duchess. She trembled with joy at the thought that the young man was about to see her in all her splendor, and gave certain orders in a low tone to Isabeau, who had brought her the message. Isabeau returned to Ascanio, took him by the hand without a word, led him into a corridor, raised a heavy curtain, and gently pushed him forward. He found himself in the Duchess's salon, immediately behind the armchair of the sovereign of the mansion, who guessed his presence more by the thrill which ran through a whole being than by the rustling of the curtain, and gave him a fair hand to kiss over his shoulder, which his lips almost touched in the position in which he stood. The lovely Duchess was, as we have said, surrounded by a veritable court. At her right was seated the Duke of Medina-Sidonia, ambassador of Charles V, Monsieur de Montbriand, governor of Charles d'Orleans, the king's second son, was at her left. The rest of the company sat in a circle at her feet. With the leading personages of the kingdom, warriors, statesmen, magistrates, artists, were assembled the leaders of the Protestant sect, which Madame d'Etampes secretly favored, great nobles all, and much courted, who had constituted themselves courtiers of the favorite. It was a gorgeous throng, and dazzling to the eyes at first sight. The conversation was enlivened with satirical remarks of all sorts concerning Dame de Poitiers, mistress of the Dauphin, and the bitter enemy of Madame d'Etampes. Button took no part in this petty warfare of quips and cranks, save by a word or two thrown in at random now and then, as, "Softly, Messrs, softly, no abuse of Madame Diane, or Endymion will be angry," or, "Poor Madame Diane, she was married the day I was born." Except for these sparks with which he lighted up the conversation, Madame d'Etampes hardly spoke to anybody beside her two neighbors. She talked with them in undertones, but with great animation, and not so low that Ascanio, who was humble and abashed among so many great men, could not hear her. "Yes, Monsieur de Montbriand," said she confidentially to her left-hand neighbor, "we must make an admirable prince of your pupil. He is the real king of the future, you know. I am ambitious for the dear child, and I am engaged at this moment in carving out an independent sovereignty for him in case God should take his father from us. Henri, too, a poor creature, between ourselves, will be king of France. So be it. Our king will be a French king, and we will leave Madame Diane in Paris to his elder brother. But we will take with us, with our Charles, the heart of Paris. The court will be where I am, Monsieur de Montbriand. I shall displace the sun. We shall have great painters like Primaticcio, charming poets like Clement Marot, who is fidgeting about yonder in his corner without speaking, a sure proof that he would like an opportunity to repeat some verses to us. All these people are at heart more vain than selfish, and more thirsty for glory than for money. And he who has the greatest wealth, but he who will flatter them most freely, will have them on his side. And he who has them will be always great, for they will shed lustre upon any place upon which their rays fall. The Dauphin cares for naught but jousting. Oh, well, let him keep the lances and swords, and we will take the pens and the brushes with us. Never fear, Monsieur de Montbriand. I will never allow myself to be put down by Madame Diane, the queen in expectancy. Let her wait patiently till time and chance give her kingdom. I shall have made one for myself twice over meanwhile. What say you to the Duchy of Milan? That you will not be very far from your friends at Geneva, for I know that you are not altogether indifferent to the new doctrine blown over from Germany. Hush! We will speak of this again, and I will tell you things that will surprise you. Why has Madame Diane assumed to set herself up as protectress of the Catholics? She protects, I protest. That's the difference between us. With an imperative gesture and a meaning glance, Madame d'Etampes brought her confidences upon this subject to a close, leaving the governor of Charles d'Orléans sadly bewildered. He was on the point of replying, nevertheless, but found that the Duchess had already turned to the Duke of Medina-Sidonia. We have said that Ascanio could hear all. Well, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, so Madame d'Etampes began, does the Emperor finally conclude to pass through France? He can hardly do otherwise, to tell the truth, and a net on land is always preferable to a yawning gulf at sea. His cousin Henry VIII would have no scruples about kidnapping him, and if he escaped the English he would fall into the hands of the Turk. By land the 3 Protestant princes would oppose his passage. What can he do? He must either proceed through France, or else, cruel sacrifice, forego the chastisement of the rebels of Ghent, his dear compatriots. For our great Emperor Charles is a good burgher of Ghent. That is very evident in the slight respect which he has shown on occasion for royal majesty. Memories of that sort are what make him so timid and circumspect today, Monsieur de Medina. Oh, we understand it all. He fears that the King of France will avenge a prisoner in Spain, and that the prisoner at Paris may pay the balance of the ransom due from the prisoner of the Escurial. Oh, mon Dieu, let his mind be at ease. Even if he does not comprehend our chivalrous loyalty, he has heard of it, I trust. Most assuredly, Madame la Duchesse, said the ambassador, we know the loyalty of Francois when left to his own devices, but we fear. The Duke paused. You fear his advisers, do you not? Rejoined the Duchess. Yes, yes. Oh, I know very well that advice from a pretty mouth, advice which should take a clever and satirical form, would never fail of influence upon a king's mind. It is your duty to think of that, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, and take your precautions accordingly. After all, you must have full powers, or, if not full powers, a little paper signed in blank, wherein a good many things can be inserted in a few words. We know how it's done. We have studied diplomacy. Indeed, I once asked the king to make me an ambassador, for I believe that I have a decided talent for negotiation. Yes, I am sure that it would be very painful for Charles V to give up a slice of his empire in order to obtain his release, or to assure his inviolability. On the other hand, Flanders is one of the fairest jewels of his crown. It is the inheritance of his mother, Marie de Bourgogne, and it is hard to renounce the patrimony of one's ancestors with a stroke of the pen, especially when that patrimony is a great duchy, which may well be transformed into a little monarchy. But what am I saying? Mon Dieu, I, who have a perfect horror of politics, for it is universally agreed that politics and women do not go well together. To be sure, I let fall a word or two thoughtlessly now and then on affairs of state, but if His Majesty presses me and insists upon my expressing my thoughts more fully, I beg him to spare me such tiresome discussions, and sometimes I run away and leave him alone to dream upon them. You, clever diplomatist that you are, and who know mankind so well, will tell me that these words tossed into the air are just the ones which take root in minds like the king's, and that such words, which are supposed to have been blown away by the wind, almost always have more weight than a long harangue which is not listened to. That may be, Monsieur le Duc de Medina, that may be, but I am only a poor woman, engrossed with ribbons and gewgaws, and you understand all these serious matters 1,000 times better than I. But the lion may have need of the ant, the skiff may save the ship. We are here to come to an understanding, Monsieur le Duc, and that's all we have to do. If you choose, Madam, said the ambassador, it will be very quickly done. Who gives today receives tomorrow, continued the Duchess, evading a direct reply. My womanly instinct will always lead me to advise Francois I to perform great and generous deeds, but instinct often turns its back on reason. We must also think of our interest, of the interest of France. Of course. But I have confidence in you, Monsieur de Medina. I will ask your advice, and upon the whole I think that the Emperor will do well to rely upon the King's word. Ah, if you were in our interest, Madam, he would not hesitate. Master Clement Marot, said the Duchess, abruptly breaking off the conversation, as if she had not heard the ambassador's last exclamation. Master Clement Marot, do you not happen to have some flowing madrigal, or some stately sonnet to repeat to us? Madam, said the poet, sonnets and madrigals are natural flowers beneath your feet, and grow apace in the sunshine of your lovely eyes. Half a score of lines have come to my mind simply from looking into them. Indeed, master. Very good. We will listen to them. Ah, Messiah le Prévôt, welcome. Pray forgive me for not seeing you at once. Have you news of your future son-in-law, our friend Comte d'Aubec? Yes, madam, replied de Stoyville. He writes that he is to hasten his return, and we shall soon see him, I trust. A half-suppressed sigh made Madame d'Etampes start, but she said, without turning toward its author, he will be welcomed by us all. Well, Vicomte de Montaigne, she continued, have you found the sheath of your dagger? No, madam, but I am on the trace of it, and I know how and where to find it now. Good luck to you, then, Monsieur le Vicomte. Good luck to you. Are you ready, Master Clement? We are all ears. The subject is the Duchy of Étampes, said Marot. A murmur of approval ran through the room, and the poet recited the following lines in an affected voice. Madame d'Etampes clapped her hands and smiled, and all the hands and all the lips applauded after her. Faith, said she, I see that Jupiter transported Pindarus to France when he transported Tempe. With that the Duchess rose, and all the company followed suit. She was fully justified in deeming herself a veritable queen, and it was a true queenly gesture with which she took leave of a guest, and it was as a queen that all sainted her as they withdrew. Remain, she said in a low voice to Ascanio. Ascanio obeyed, but when all the others had left the room, it was no haughty and disdainful queen, but an humble and passionate woman who turned and confronted the young artist. Ascanio, born of humble parents, brought up far from the world, in the almost cloister-like twilight of the studio, and an unaccustomed guest in palaces, where he had accompanied his master only on rare occasions, was already giddy, confused, dazzled by the light and noise and conversation. His mind was attacked by something very like vertigo when he heard Madame d'Etampes speak in such simple terms, or rather so coquettishly, of such grave subjects, and touch lightly in familiar phrase upon the destinies of kings and the dismemberment of kingdoms. The woman, like a very providence, had in some sort distributed to each one his portion of joy or sorrow. She had with the same hand rattled fetters and let crowns fall. And lo, this sovereign of the loftiest earthly things, proud as Lucifer with the noble flatterers, turned to him not only with the soft glance of the loving woman, but with the suppliant air of the slave who fees. Ascanio had suddenly become the leading character in the play, instead of a simple spectator. It should be said that the coquettish Duchess had skillfully planned and brought about this effect. Ascanio was conscious of the empire which this woman assumed, despite his efforts to combat it, not over his heart, but over his mind, and like the child that he was, he sought to hide his trouble beneath a cold, stern demeanor. It may perhaps be that he had seen his spotless Colombe pass like a ghost between the Duchess and himself, Colombe with a white robe and a luminous brow. Chapter 17, Love as Passion. Madam, said Ascanio, you requested me to design a lily. Do you remember? You ordered me to bring a design to you as soon as it should be completed. I completed it this morning, and I have it here. We have time enough, Ascanio, said the Duchess, with a smile and in a siren's voice. Sit you down, pray. Well, my bonny invalid, what have you wound? I am entirely recovered, madam, so far as your shoulder is concerned. But he, said the Duchess, laying her hand upon the young man's heart with a graceful gesture and a world of sentiment in her tone. I beg you, madam, to forget all that nonsense. I am very angry with myself for having annoyed your ladyship with it. Oh, mon Dieu, what means this air of constraint? What means this clouded brow and this harsh voice? All those men wearied you, did they not, Ascanio? And as for myself, I hate and abhor them, but I fear them. Oh, how I long to be alone with you. Did you not see how quickly I dismissed them? You are right, madam. I felt sadly out of place in such a distinguished company. I, a poor artist, who am here simply to show you this lily. Ah, mon Dieu. In a moment, Ascanio, continued the Duchess, slinking ahead, you are very cold and very sober with a friend. The other day you were so expansive and so delightful. Why this change, Ascanio? Doubtless some speech of your master's, who cannot endure me. How could you listen to him? Ascanio, come, be frank. You have discussed me with him, have you not? And he told you that it was dangerous to trust me, that the friendly feeling I had manifested for you concealed some snare. He told you, did he not, that I detest you? He told me that you loved me, madam, retorted Ascanio, looking earnestly into her face. Madame d'Etampes was speechless for a moment, in presence of the thoughts which rushed through her mind. She wished without doubt that Ascanio should know her love, but she would have liked time to prepare him for it, and to extinguish gradually, without seeming interested in so doing, his passion for Colombe. How that the ambuscade she had arranged was discovered, she must fight her battle in the broad daylight, and win the victory openly if at all. She made her decision in a second. Well, yes, said she, I do love you. Is it a crime? Is it a sin even? Can one command one's love or hatred? You should never name knowing that I love you. For why tell you, when you love another? But that man revealed the whole truth. He laid bare my heart to you, and he did well, Ascanio. Look upon it, and you will see their adoration so deep that you can but be touched by it. And now, Ascanio, you must love me too. Mark that. And d'Etampes, a potent, superior nature, disdainful by instinct and ambitious from weariness of her surroundings, had several lovers hitherto, but not one love. She had fascinated the king. Admiral Brian had taken her by surprise. The Comte de Longueville caught her fancy for the moment, but throughout all these intrigues the head had always taken the place of the heart. At last, one day she found this young, true love, tender and deep, which she had so often summoned without avail, and now another woman disputed its possession with her. Ah, so much the worse for that other woman. She could not know what an irresistible passion she had to contend with. All the determination and all the violent impulses of her heart, she, and d'Etampes, would make manifest in her affection. That woman did not yet know what a fatal thing it would be to have a Duchesse d'Etampes for her rival, the Duchesse d'Etampes, who desired to have her Ascanio to herself, and whose power was such that she could, with a look, a word, a gesture, crush whatever might come between him and herself. The die was cast. The ambition and the beauty of the king's mistress were thenceforth to serve no other masters than a love for Ascanio and a jealousy of Colombe. Poor Colombe, at that moment bending over her embroidery, sitting at a spinning wheel, or kneeling before her prie-dieu. Ascanio, in presence of so outspoken and so redoubtable a passion, felt fascinated, carried away, and dismayed, all at the same moment. Benvenuto had said, and Ascanio now realized, that this was no mere whim, but he was deficient, not in the strength to struggle, but in the experience which would have taught him to feign submission. He was hardly 20 years old, and was too candid to pretend. He fancied, poor child, that the memory of Colombe, The name of the innocent girl uttered by him would be an offensive and defensive weapon, a sword and a shield, while on the other hand it was sure to drive the shaft still deeper into the heart of Madame d'Etampes, who perhaps would soon have grown weary of a love in which she had no rival and no battle to wage. "Come, Ascanio," she resumed more calmly, seeing that the young man held his peace, alarmed perhaps by the words she had let fall. "Let us for today forget my love, which an imprudent word of yours inopportunely awakened. Let us think now of yourself only. Oh, I love you more on your own account than mine, I swear to you. I long to brighten your life as you have brightened mine. You are an orphan. Take me for your mother. You heard what I said to Montbrien and Medina, and you may have thought that I am all ambition. T is true, I am ambitious, but for you alone. How long is it since I conceived this project of creating an independent duchy in the heart of Italy for a son of France? Only since I have loved you. If I were queen there, who would be the veritable king? You. For you I would cause empire and kingdom to change places. Ah, Ascanio, you do not know me. You do not know what a woman I am. You see that I tell you the whole truth. I unfold my plans to you without reserve. How do you, in your turn, confide in me, Ascanio? What are your wishes, that I may fulfill them? What are your passions, that I may minister to them? Madam, I desire to be as frank and loyal as yourself, and to tell you the truth, as you have told it to me. I ask nothing, I wish nothing, I long for nothing, save Colombe's love. But she loves you not, you yourself told me so. I was desperate the other day, true, but today who can say? Ascanio lowered his eyes and his voice. For you love me, he added. The Duchess was taken aback by this instance of the instinctive divination of true love. There was a moment of silence, and that moment sufficed for her to collect her thoughts. Ascanio, let us not talk today of affairs of the heart, she said. I made that request once before. I make it again. Love is in the whole of life to you men. For instance, have you never thirsted for wealth, honors, glory? Oh, yes, yes. For a month past I have most ardently longed for them, replied Ascanio, always reverting to the same idea in spite of himself. Again there was a pause. Are you fond of Italy? And resumed with effort. Yes, madam, said Ascanio. There are flowering orange groves there, beneath which it is so pleasant to wander and converse. There the bluest of blue sky surrounds, caresses, and adorns everything that is beautiful. Oh, to fly thither with you, to have you all to myself, to be all in all to you, as you would be all in all to me. Mon Dieu, cried the Duchess, likewise yielding to the irresistible force of her love. But she at once recovered herself, fearing to frighten Ascanio again, and continued, I thought that you loved art before everything. Before everything I love, to love, said Ascanio. Oh, it is my great master Cellini, not I, who throws his whole being into his work. He is the great, the marvelous, the sublime artist. I am a poor apprentice, nothing more. I came to France with him, not to acquire wealth, no glory, but because I loved him, that's all, and it was impossible for me to part from him, for at that time he was everything to me. I have no personal will, no strength independent of his strength. I became a goldsmith to gratify him, and because he wished it, as I became a carver because of his enthusiasm for skillful and delicate carving. Very well, said the Duchess. Now listen, to live in Italy, all-powerful, almost a king, to patronize artists, Cellini at their head, to give him bronze and silver and gold, to carve and cast and mold, and beyond all that, to love and be loved. Say, Ascanio, is it not a lovely dream? It would be paradise, madam, if it were Colombe whom I loved and who loved me. Still Colombe, always Colombe, cried the Duchess. So be it. Since the subject persistently forces itself into our words and our thoughts, since your Colombe is here with us, constantly before your eyes, and constantly in your heart, let us speak of her and of myself frankly and without hypocrisy. She does not love you, and you know it full well. Oh, no, I do not know it now, madam. But how can she love you when she is to marry another? Cried the Duchess. Her father forces her. Perhaps. Her father forces her. And do you think that if you loved me as you loved her, do you think that if I were in a place there is in this wide world any force or will or power that could keep us apart? Oh, I would leave everything. I would fly from everything. I would run to your arms and would give you my love, my honor, and my life to guard. No, no. I say she does not love you. And now would you have me tell you something else? You do not love her. What? I not love Colombe. I think you said that I do not love her. Madam? No, you do not love her. You deceive yourself. At your age, one mistakes the need of loving for love. If you had seen me first, you would love me instead of her. Oh, when I think that you might have loved me. But no, no, it is much better that you should choose me in preference to her. I do not know this Colombe. She is lovely and pure, and whatever you choose. But these slips of girls know nothing about loving. Your Colombe would never have told you what I, whom you despise, have just said. She would have too much vanity, too much diffidence, too much shame perhaps. But my love is simple, and expresses itself in simple words. You despise me, you think that I forget my sex, and all because I don't dissemble. Some day, when you know the world better, when you have drunk so deeply of life that you have reached the dregs, sorrow, then you will think better of your present injustice, then you will admire me. But I do not choose to be admired. Ascanio, I choose to be loved. I say again, Ascanio, if I loved you less, I might be false, artful, coquettish, but I love you too well to try to fascinate you. I long to receive your heart as a gift, not to steal it. What will be the end of your love for that child? Tell me. You will suffer, my best beloved, and that's all. But I can serve you in many ways. In the first place, I have suffered for two, and perhaps God will permit my surplusage of suffering to be credited to you. And then I lay my wealth, my power, my experience, all at your feet. I will add my life to yours, and will save you from all sorts of missteps and from all forms of corruption. To arrive at fortune, or even to attain glory, an artist must often stoop to base, crawling expedients. You will be beyond all necessity for that with me. I will lift you ever higher and higher. I will be your stepping stone. With me you will continue to be the proud, the noble, the pure Ascanio. But Colombe, madam, is not she too an immaculate pearl? My child, believe what I say, replied the Duchess, relapsing from feverish exaltation to melancholy. Your pure white, innocent Colombe will make your life monotonous and dreary. You are both too divine. God didn't make angels to be joined together, but to make bad people better. The Duchess's manner was so eloquent, and her voice so sincere, that Ascanio was conscious of a thrill of affectionate compassion stealing over him, in spite of himself. Alas, madam, he said, I see that I am indeed honored by your affection, and I am very deeply touched. But it is even better to love. Oh, how true that is. I prefer your disdain to the king's softest words. Me, I love for the first time. For the first time, I swear. And the king? Pray, do you not love him? Madam? No, I am his mistress, but he is not my master. But he loves you. Mon Dieu, cried Anne, gazing earnestly into Ascanio's face, and seizing both his hands in hers. Am I so fortunate that you are jealous? Does the king's love offend you? Listen, hitherto I have been in your eyes a duchess, wealthy, noble, powerful, offering to stir up crowned heads and overturn thrones. Do you prefer the poor, lonely woman, out of the world, with a simple white robe and a wild flower in her hay? Do you prefer that, Ascanio? Let us leave Paris, the court, the world. Let us take refuge in some far-off nook in your sunny Italy, beneath the lofty pines of Rome, or on the shores of your lovely Bay of Naples. Here I am ready. Oh, Ascanio, does it really flatter your pride that I would sacrifice a crowned lover for your sake? Madam, said Ascanio, whose heart was beginning to melt in the flame of so great a passion. Madam, my heart is too proud and too exacting. You cannot give me the past. The past? Oh, you men, always cruel. The past. In God's name, on an unfortunate woman to be compelled to answer for her past, when it has almost always been made what it was by events and circumstances stronger than herself. Suppose that a storm should arise and a whirlwind carry you off to Italy. When you return, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years hence, should you take it ill of your Colombe, whom you love so dearly today, because she had obeyed her parents and married Comte d'Olbeck? Would you make her virtue a subject of reproach? Would you punish her for obeying one of God's commandments? And if she had not your memory to feed upon, if she had never known you, if, in a deathly ennui, crushed with grief, forgotten for a moment by God, she had sought again some knowledge of that paradise called love, the door of which was closed to her, if she had loved another than her husband, whom she could not love, if in a moment of delirium she had given her heart in exchange for another, she would then be ruined in your eyes, dissonant in your heart. She could no longer hope to be blessed by your love, because she had not an unsullied past to give in exchange for your heart. Oh, I repeat, it is unjust, it is cruel. Madam, who told you that is not my story? Listen to what I say, and believe what I declare to be the truth. I say again that I have suffered for both, and this poor woman, whom God forgives, you refuse to forgive. You do not understand how much greater and nobler it is to raise oneself from the abyss after falling into it, than to pass close by without seeing it, having the bandage of happiness over your eyes. Oh, Ascanio, Ascanio, I deemed you better than the others, because you were younger and fairer to look upon. Oh, madam, reach me your hand, Ascanio, and at one bound I will spring from the bottom of the abyss to your heart. Will you? Tomorrow I will have broken with the king, the court, the world. Oh, I am valiant in love, but I do not wish to make myself any greater than I am. It would be but a trifling sacrifice for me, believe me. All these men are not worth one glance from you. But if you would trust in me, dear child, you would let me retain my authority and continue my plans for you. I would make you great, and you men can do without love if you attain glory. You are ambitious. You may not know it yet, but you are. As for the king's love, don't be alarmed about that. I will turn it aside upon some other to whom he will give his heart while I retain his mind. Choose Ascanio, powerful through my manes and with me, or I humble through your manes and with you. Look you, a short time since, as you know, I was in this chair, and the most powerful courtiers were at my feet. Sit you in my place. Sit you there, and behold me at your feet. Oh, how I love to be here, Ascanio. Oh, what bliss to see you and look into your eyes. You turn pale, Ascanio. Oh, if you would but tell me that you would love me some day, though not for a very long while. Madam, madam, cried Ascanio, hiding his face in his hands and covering eyes and ears, so conscious was he of the potent fascination of the aspect and the accent of the siren. Do not call me madam, do not call me said the Duchess, putting aside his hands. Call me Louise. It is also my name, but a name by which no one has ever called me, and it shall be yours. Louise, Louise, do you not think it a sweet name, Ascanio? I know one sweeter still, replied Ascanio. Beware, Ascanio, cried the wounded lioness. If you make me suffer too keenly, I may perhaps come to hate you as much as I love you. Mon Dieu, replied the young man, shaking his head as if to avert the spell. Mon Dieu, you confuse my thoughts and overwhelm my heart. Am I delirious? Have I a fever? Am I dreaming? If I say harsh things to you, forgive me, for I do it to awaken myself. I see you, lovely, adored, a queen, here at my feet. It cannot be that such temptations exist except to lead souls to perdition. Ah, you are, as you say, in an abyss, but instead of rising out of it yourself, you would draw me in. Oh, do not expose my weakness to such a trial. There is neither temptation, nor trial, nor dream. There is a resplendent reality for us both. I love you, Ascanio, I love you. You love me, but you will repent of your love hereafter, and will reproach me some day for what you have brought into my life. or what I have taken away from yours. Ah, you do not know me, cried the Duchess. If you think me weak enough to repent, stay, will you have a pledge? And hastily seated herself at a table upon which were writing materials, and, seizing a pen, dashed off a few words. Take this, she said, and doubt me again, if you dare. Ascanio took the paper and read. Ascanio, I love you. Go with me where I go, or let me go with you where you go. And Dagialoy. Oh, that cannot be, madam. It seems to me that my love would be a cause of shame to you. Shame, cried the Duchess. Do I know shame? I am too proud for that. My pride is my virtue. Ah, I know a lovelier and more saintly virtue than that, said Ascanio, clinging to the thought of Colombe with a desperate effort. The blow struck home. The Duchess rose, trembling with indignation. You are an obstinate, hard-hearted child, Ascanio, she said in a broken voice. I would fain have spared you much suffering, but I see that sorrow alone can teach you what life is. You will come back to me, Ascanio. You will return wounded, bleeding, heartbroken, and you will know then the worth of your Colombe and of myself. I will forgive you then, because I love you, but ere that time comes, terrible things will happen. Au revoir. And Madame d'Etampes, wild with love and hatred, left the room, forgetting that the 2 lines she had written in a moment of exultation remained in Ascanio's hands. Chapter 18, Love as a Dream. As soon as Ascanio was out of Madame d'Etampes' presence, the fascinating influence which emanated from her disappeared, and he could once more see clearly the condition of his own heart, as well as what was going on about him. How? He recalled 2 things he had said. Colombe might love him, since the Duchesse d'Etampes loved him. Thenceforth his life did not belong to him. His instinct had served him well in suggesting these 2 thoughts to him, but it had led him astray when it inspired him to give utterance to them. If the honest, upright soul of the young man had been capable of descending to dissimulation, all would have been well, but he had simply put the wounded and much to be dreaded Duchess on her guard. The struggle henceforth was to be the more terrible, in that Colombe only was threatened. However, this passionate and perilous scene with the Duchess was of service to Ascanio in one respect. He carried away from it a newborn feeling of exultation and confidence. His mind, excited by the spectacle it had witnessed as well as by its own efforts, was more active than ever, and more inclined to audacious deeds. So he gallantly determined to find out what basis there might be for his hopes, and to sound the depths of Colombe's heart, though he would have find nothing more than indifference there. If Colombe really loved Comte d'Olbec, why contend longer against Madame d'Etampes? She might do what she would with a rebellious, despised, desolate, despairing existence. He will be ambitious. He will become gloomy and evil-minded. What matter if he did? But first of all, he must put an end to his doubts, and go with a determined step to meet his fate. If worst came to worst, Madame d'Etampes' promise would take care of the future. Ascanio arrived at this decision as he returned along the quay, watching the sun sink in a sea of flame behind the black, frowning Tour de Nesle. When he reached the hotel, without delay or hesitation, he went first to put together a few jewels, then resolutely knocked 4 times at the door leading to the Petit Nesle. Dame Perini chanced to be in the neighborhood. With astonishment, mingled with curiosity, she made haste to open the gate. But when she saw the apprentice, she felt called upon to assume a very frigid demeanor. Ah, is it you, Monsieur Ascanio? What do you wish? I wish to show these jewels to Mademoiselle Colombe immediately, good Dame Perini. Is she in the garden? Yes, in a path. But wait, young man, wait for me. Ascanio, who had not forgotten the road, walked swiftly away without giving another thought to the governess. Let us see, said she, stopping to reflect. I think my best course is not to join them, but to leave Colombe free to select her purchases and her gifts. It would not be becoming for me to be there, if, as is probable, she puts something aside for me. I will arrive when she has completed her purchases, and then I should certainly be very ungrateful to refuse. That's what I'll do. Stay here and not embarrass a dear, kind-hearted child. It will be seen that the good woman was not deficient in delicacy. For 10 days past, Colombe had not found it necessary to ask herself if Ascanio had become her dearest thought. The pure-souled, unsophisticated child did not know what love was, but her heart was overflowing with love. She told herself that she did wrong to indulge in such dreams, but she excused herself on the ground that she certainly should never see Ascanio again, and that she should not have the consolation of justifying herself in his eyes. Upon this pretext, she passed all her evenings upon the bench where he had sat beside her, and there she would talk to him, listen to him, and concentrate her whole soul upon the memory. And when the darkness came on, and Dame Perini bade her retire, the lovely dreamer would return to the house with reluctant steps, and not until she was recalled to herself would she remember her father's commands, Comte d'Ilbec, and the rapid flight of time. Her sleepless nights were hard to bear, but not sufficiently so to efface the charm of her visions of the evening. On this evening, as usual, Colombe was living over again the delicious hour she had passed with Ascanio, when, happening to raise her eyes, she uttered a sharp cry. He was standing before her, gazing at her in silence. He found her changed, but lovelier than ever. Pallor and melancholy were most becoming to her ideally beautiful face. She seemed to belong still less to earth. And so Ascanio, gazing admiringly upon her enhanced charms, was assailed once more by his former modest apprehensions, which Madame d'Etampes' passion had dissipated for a moment. How could the celestial creature ever love him? The two lovely children, who had loved each other so long without a word, and who had already suffered so much, were at last face to face. They ought, no doubt, to have traversed in an instant the space they had traversed step by step, and separately, in their dreams. They might now come to an understanding first of all, and then allow all their long pent-up emotion to find expression in an outburst of joy. But they were both too timid for that, and although their emotion betrayed each to the other, the angel hearts did not come together until they had first made a detour. Colombe, speechless and blushing, had risen to her feet by a sudden impulse. Ascanio, pale with the intensity of his emotion, repressed with a trembling hand the rapid beating of his heart. They both began to speak at once. He to say, "Forgive me, mademoiselle, but you gave me leave to show you some jewels." She to say, "I am glad to see that you are entirely recovered, Monsieur Ascanio." They ceased speaking simultaneously, but nevertheless they had perfectly understood each other, and Ascanio, emboldened by the involuntary smile, which the incident naturally brought to the maiden's lips, rejoined, with somewhat more assurance, "Are you so kind as to remember that I was wounded?" "Indeed, yes, and Dame Perini and I have been very anxious and astonished not to see you." "I did not intend to come again." "Why not, pray?" At this decisive moment Ascanio was fain to lean against a tree for support, but in a moment he summoned all his strength and all his courage, and said breathlessly, "I may confess it now, I loved you." "And now?" The question came from Colombe's lips almost without a knowledge. It would have put to flight all the doubts of an older hand than Ascanio, but it simply revived his hopes a little. "Now, alas," he continued, "I have measured the distance that lies between us, and I know that you are happily betrothed to a noble count." "Happily," interposed Colombe, with a bitter smile. "What? You do not love the count? Great God! Pray tell me, is he not worthy of you? He is rich and powerful, far above me, but you have seen him." "No, and I was afraid to inquire. Besides, I cannot say why, but I felt certain that he was young and attractive, and that he was agreeable to you." "He is older than my father, and he frightens me," said Colombe, hiding her fairy in her hands with a gesture of abhorrence which he could not repress. Ascanio, beside himself with joy, fell on his knees, with clasped hands, pale as death, his eyes half closed, but a sublime light shone out from beneath his eyelids, and a smile fit to rejoice God's heart played about his colorless lips. "What is the matter, Ascanio?" said Colombe in alarm. "What is the matter?" cried the young man, finding in the excess of his joy the audacity which sorrow first gave him. "What is the matter?" "Why, I love you, Colombe." "Ascanio, Ascanio," murmured Colombe, in a tone that was half reproof, half pleasure, and it must be said, as soft as confession of love. But they understood each other. Their hearts were united, and before they were conscious of it, their lips had followed suit. "My friend," said Colombe, softly pushing Ascanio away. They gazed into one another's faces in ecstasy. The two angels recognized each other at last. Life does not contain two such moments. "And so," said Ascanio, "you do not love Comte d'Aubec. You are free to love me." "My friend," said Colombe, in a sweet, grave voice, "no one say my father ever kissed me before, and he, alas, very rarely. I am an ignorant child, and I know nothing of life, but I know from the thrill which your kiss caused me that it is my duty henceforth to belong only to you or to heaven. Yes, if it were otherwise, I am sure that it would be a crime. Your lips have consecrated me your fiancée and your wife, and though my father himself should say no, I would listen only to the voice of God, which says yes in my heart. Here is my hand, which is yours." "Angels of paradise, hear her and envy me," cried Ascanio. "Such ecstasy is not to be pictured or described. Let those who can remember, remember. For it is impossible to put upon paper the words, the looks, the hand pressures of these pure-hearted, lovely children. Their spotless souls flowed together, as do the waters from two springs, without changing their nature or their color." Ascanio did not sully with the shadow of an impure thought the chaste brow of his beloved. Colombe laid her head in perfect trust upon her lover's shoulder. Had the Virgin Mary looked down upon them from on high, she would not have turned her head away. When one begins to love, one is in haste to bring to the support of his love all that he can of his past, present, and future. As soon as they could speak calmly, Ascanio and Colombe described to each other all their sorrows, all their hopes of the days just gone by. It was charming to both to find that each had the other's story to tell. They had suffered much, and they smiled upon each other as they remembered their suffering. But when they came to speak of the future, then they became serious and sad. What had God in store for them for the morrow? According to all divine laws, they were made for each other, but human prejudices would declare their union ill-assorted, monstrous. What were they to do? How persuade Comte d'Aubec to renounce his wife? How persuade the provost of Paris to give his daughter to an artisan? "Alas, my friend," said Colombe, "I promised you that I would belong to you or to heaven. I see that it must be to heaven." "No," said Ascanio, "to me. Two children like ourselves cannot move the world alone. But I will speak to my dear master, Benvenuto Cellini. He is powerful, Colombe, and sees all things from a higher level. He acts on earth as God ordains in heaven, and whatever his will is undertaken he accomplishes. He will give you to me. I do not know how he will do it, but I am sure. He loves obstacles. He will speak to King Francois. He will persuade your father. The only thing he could not bring to pass you did without his intervention. You love me. The rest ought to be very simple. You see that I believe in miracles now, my best beloved. Dear Ascanio, you hope and I hope. Would you like me also to try an experiment? There is a person whose influence over my father's mind is unbounded. Shall I not write to Madame d'Etampes?" "Madame d'Etampes," cried Ascanio. "Mon Dieu, I had forgotten her." Thereupon he told her, simply and without affectation, how he had seen the Duchess, how she had declared her love for him, and how, that very day, within an hour, she had pronounced herself the enemy of his beloved. But of what consequence was it? Benvenuto's task would be a little more difficult. That was all. One adversary more would not terrify him. "My dear," said Colombe, "you have faith in your master, and I have faith in you. Speak to Cellini as soon as possible, and let him decide our fate. Tomorrow I will tell him everything. He loves me so well that he will understand me instantly. But what is it, my Colombe? How sad you are." Each sentence of Ascanio's narrative had made Colombe doubly conscious of a love for him by forcing the sharp sting of jealousy into her heart, and more than once she convulsively pressed Ascanio's hand, which she held in her own. "Ascanio, Madame d'Etampes is very beautiful. She is beloved by a great king. Mon Dieu, did she make no impression upon your heart?" "I love you," said Ascanio. "Wait here for me." She returned a moment later with a beautiful fresh white lily. "When you are working at that woman's lily of gold and jewels," said she, glance sometimes at the simple lilies from your Colombe's garden. With that she put her lips to the flower and handed it to the apprentice, as coquettishly as Madame d'Etampes herself could have done. At that moment Dame Perini appeared at the end of the path. Adieu and au revoir, said Colombe, putting a hand to her lover's lips with a furtive, graceful gesture. The governess approached them. Well, my child, she said to Colombe, have you given the delinquent a good scolding and selected your jewels? Take this, Dame Perini, said Ascanio, putting the box of trinkets in the good woman's hand still unopened. Mademoiselle Colombe and I have decided that you shall yourself choose whatever suits you best, and I will come again tomorrow for the others. With that he ran off with his joy, darting a farewell glance at Colombe, which told her all that he had to tell. Colombe sat with her hands folded upon her breast as if to confine the happiness it contained, while Dame Perini was making her choice among the marvels brought by Ascanio. Alas! The poor child was very soon and very cruelly awakened from her sweet dreams. A woman appeared, escorted by one of the provost's men. Monseigneur le Comte d'Aubec, who is to return day after tomorrow, said this woman, places me at Madame's service from today. I am familiar with the newest and prettiest styles, and I am commanded by Monsieur le Comte and Messire le Prévôt to make for Madame a magnificent brocade gown, as Madame la Duchesse d'Etampes is to present Madame to the Queen on the day of Her Majesty's departure for Saint-Germain, 4 days hence. After the scene we have described, the reader may imagine the despairing effect of this twofold news upon Colombe. Chapter 19, Love as an Idea. The next morning at daybreak Ascanio, resolved to place his destiny in his master's hands at once, repaired to the foundry where Cellini worked every morning. But as he was about to knock at the door of what the master called his cell, he heard Scottsone's voice. He supposed that she was posing, and he discreetly withdrew, to return a little later. Meanwhile he walked about the gardens of the Grand Nestle, reflecting upon what he should say to Cellini, and what Cellini would probably say to him. But Scottsone was not posing. Far from it. She had never before set foot in the cell, to which no one, to her great disappointment, was ever admitted. So it was that the master's wrath was terrible to behold, when, happening to turn his head, he saw Catherine behind him, with her great eyes open wider than ever. The imprudent damsel's desire to see found little to gratify it. After all, a few drawings upon the walls, a green curtain before the window, a statue of Hebe begun, and a collection of sculptor's utensils comprised the whole contents of the room. What do you want, little serpent? Why have you come here? In God's name will you follow me to hell? Cried Benvenuto at sight of Catherine. Alas, master, said Scotsone in his softest voice, I assure you I am not a serpent. I confess that rather than part from you, I would joyfully follow you to hell if necessary, and I come here because it is the only place where I can speak to you in secret. Very well. Make haste. What have you to say to me? Oh, mon Dieu! Benvenuto! Exclaimed Scotsone, spying the outline statue. What an admirable figure! It is your Hebe. I had no idea it was so far advanced. How lovely it is! Is it not? Said Benvenuto. Ah, yes, very lovely. And I understand that you would not want me to pose for such a subject. But who is your model? Inquired Scotsone anxiously. I have not seen any woman go in or out. Hush! Come, my dear girl, you surely did not come here to talk of sculpture. No, master, it's about our pergolo. I did as you bade me. Benvenuto. He took advantage of your absence last evening to annoy me with his eternal love, and, as you commanded, I listened to him to the end. Aha! The traitor! What did he say to you? Oh, it's enough to make one die with laughing, and I would have given anything in the world could you have been there. Please understand that, in order not to arouse suspicion, the hypocrite finished the clasp you had given him to make while he was speaking to me, and the file that he held in his hand added not a little to the pathos of his speech. Dear Catherine, said he, I am dying for love of you. When will you take pity on my martyrdom? One word. I only ask for one word. Just see to what I expose myself for your sake. If I had not finished this clasp, the master might suspect something, and if he suspected anything, he would kill me without mercy. But I defy everything for your lovely eyes. Jesu, this accursed work doesn't advance at all. After all, Catherine, what good does it do you to love Benvenuto? He doesn't thank you for it. He is always indifferent to you. And I would love you with a love which would be so ardent and so circumspect at the same time. No one would discover it. You would never be compromised, and you could rely on my discretion, whatever might happen. Look you, he added, made bold by my silence, I have already found a safe retreat, hidden from every eye, where I could take you without fear. Ha! Ha! You would never guess the place the sly rascal had selected. Benvenuto. I give you 100, 1,000 guesses. None but men with hangdog looks and eyes on the ground discover such out-of-the-way corners. He proposed to quarter me. Where do you suppose? In the head of your great statue of Mars. We can go up, he said, with a ladder. He assured me that there is a very pretty apartment there, out of everyone's sight, and with a magnificent view of the surrounding country. Faith, it's not a bad idea, said Benvenuto, with a laugh. And what reply did you make, Scott's own? I replied with a great burst of laughter, which I could not keep back, and which sorely disappointed Mons. Pagolo! He undertook then to be very pathetic, to reproach me with having no heart, and with wishing to cause his death, and so forth, and so forth. All the time working away with hammer and file, he talked to me in that strain for a full half-hour, for he's a loquacious rascal when he gives his mind to it. What reply did you give him finally, Scott's own? What reply? Just as you knocked at the door, and he placed his clasp, finished at last, upon the table, I took his hand, and said to him very soberly, Pagolo, you have talked like a jewel. That was why you found him looking so like an idiot when you came in. You were wrong. Scott's own, you should not have discouraged him so. You told me to listen to him, and I listened. Do you think it's so very easy for me to listen to handsome boys? Suppose something should happen some fine day. You should not only listen to him, my child, but you must give him an answer. It is indispensable to my plan. Speak to him at first without anger, then indulgently, and then encouragingly. When you have reached that point, I will tell you what else you must do. But that may have results you do not intend. Do you know? At least you should be there. Never fear. Scott's own, I will appear at the right moment. You have only to rely upon me, and follow my instructions to the letter. Go now, little one, and leave me to my work. Catherine tripped lightly away, laughing in pleased anticipation of the fine trick Cellini proposed to play upon Pagolo, of the nature of which, however, she could not form the least conception. Benvenuto, when she had left him, did not resume his work, as he had said. He rushed to the window which looked obliquely upon the garden of the Pettinessel, and stood there in rapt contemplation. A knock at the door rudely aroused him from his reverie. Hail and tempest! He cried in a rage. Who is there now? Can I not be left in peace? 10,000 devils! Forgive me, master, said Ascanio's voice. If I disturb you, I will go away. What? Is it you, my child? No, no, surely not. You never disturb me. What is it? Pray? What do you want with me? Benvenuto lost no time in opening the door for his beloved pupil. I interfere with your solitude and your work, said Ascanio. No, Ascanio, you are always welcome. Master, I have a secret to confide to you, a service to ask of you. Speak. Will you have my purse? Do you need my arm or my thoughts? I may have need of them all, dear master. So much the better. I am yours body and soul, Ascanio. I have a confession to make to you. Yes, a confession, for although I have committed no sin, I think, still I shall have some remorse until I am absolved by you. But do you speak first? Very well, Master Dot, but, great heaven, what is that cast? Cried Ascanio, interrupting himself. His eye had just fallen upon the statue of Hebe, and in the statue he recognized Colombe. It is Hebe, replied Benvenuto, with glistening eyes. It is a goddess of youth. Do you think it beautiful, Ascanio? Oh, wonderful. But those features, I know them. I cannot be mistaken. Rash boy, since you raise a veil halfway, I must needs snatch it away altogether. And so, after all, your confidence will come after mine. Sit down, Ascanio. You shall have my heart spread out before you like an open book. You need me, you say. I, too, need that you should hear me. I shall be relieved of a great weight when you know all. Ascanio sat down, paler than the culprit about to listen to the reading of the death sentence. You are a Florentine, Ascanio, and I do not need to ask you if you know the story of Dante Alighieri. One day he saw a child named Beatrice passing along the street, and he loved her. The child died, and he loved her still, for it was a soul that he loved, and souls do not die. But he crowned her with a crown of stars and placed her in paradise. That done, he set about analyzing human passions, sounding the depths of poetry and philosophy, and when, purified by suffering and contemplation, bereaded the gates of heaven, where Virgil, that is, wisdom, was to leave him, he was not obliged to stop for lack of a guide, because he found Beatrice, that is, love, awaiting him on the threshold. Ascanio, I have my Beatrice, dead like the other, and adored as she was. This has been hitherto a secret between God and her and myself. I am weak to resist temptation, but my adoration for her has remained intact amid all the impure passions to which I have yielded. I had placed my light too high for corruption to reach it. The man plunged heedlessly into dissipation. The artist remained true to his mysterious betrothal. And if I have done anything creditable, Ascanio, if inert matter, silver or clay, has been made to assume form and life under my fingers, if I have sometimes succeeded in imparting beauty to marble and life to bronze, it has been because my resplendent vision has given me counsel, support, and instruction for 20 years past. But I know not how it is, Ascanio. Perhaps there is a distinction between the poet and the goldsmith, between the molder of ideas and the molder of gold. Dante dreams. I need to see. The name of Maria is all sufficient to him. I must have before me the face of the Madonna. We divine his creations. We touch mine. That perhaps is why my Beatrice was not enough, or rather was too much for me, a sculptor. Her mind was ever present with me, but I was compelled to seek the human form. The angelic woman who shed a bright light upon my life had been beautiful, most certainly, beautiful above all in the qualities of her heart, but she did not realize the type of undying beauty upon which my imagination dwelt. I found myself constrained, therefore, to seek elsewhere, to invent. Now, tell me this, Ascanio, do you think that if my sculptor's ideal had presented itself to me living on this earth, and if I had bestowed a share of my admiration upon it, I should have been ungrateful and faithless to my poetic ideal? Do you think that my celestial apparition would in that case have ceased to visit me, that the angel would be jealous of the woman? Do you think it? I ask you the question, Ascanio, and you will know some day why I ask it of you rather than of another, why I tremble as I await your reply, as if you were my Beatrice herself. Master, said Ascanio gravely and sadly, I am too young to have an opinion upon such lofty subjects. I think, however, in my heart, that you are one of the chosen men whom God leads, and that what you find upon your path has been placed there by God, not by chance. That is really your belief, is it not, Ascanio? You are of opinion that the terrestrial angel, the realization of my longing, would be sent by God, and that the other celestial angel would not be angry at my desertion? In that case, I may venture to tell you that I have found my ideal, that it is living, that I can sec it and almost touch it. Ascanio, the model of all beauty, of all purity, the type of infinite perfection to which we artists aspire, is near at hand, it breathes, and I can admire it every day. All that I have done hitherto is as nothing compared with what I will do. This Hebe, which you think beautiful, and which is, in very truth, my chef d'oeuvre, does not satisfy me as yet. My living dream stands beside its image, and seems to me 100 times more glorious. But I will attain it. I will attain it. Ascanio, 1,000 white statues, all of which resemble it, are already forming and rising in my brain. I see them, I feel their presence, and someday they will come forth. And now, Ascanio, would you like me to show you my lovely inspiration? It should be close by us. Every morning, when the sun rises, it shines upon me from below. Look. Benvenuto drew the curtain aside from the window and pointed to the garden of the Petit Nestle. In a leafy avenue, Colombe was walking slowly along, her head resting upon her hand. How fair she is she not? Said Benvenuto ecstatically. Phidias and old Michelangelo created nothing purer, and the ancients, if they equal, do not surpass that graceful young head. How beautiful she is! Ah, yes, beautiful indeed, murmured Ascanio, who had resumed his seat without strength to move or to think. There was a moment's pause, while Benvenuto feasted upon his joy, and Ascanio brooded over his pain. But, master, the apprentice timidly ventured to say, where will this artist passion lead you? What do you mean to do? Ascanio, replied Cellini, she who is dead is not and cannot be mine. God simply showed her to me, and did not implant any human love for her in my heart. Strangely enough, he did not even lead me to feel what she was to me until he had taken her from the world. She is naught but a memory in my life, a vague, indistinct image. But if you have understood me, Colombe more nearly touches my existence, my heart. I dare to love her. I dare to say to myself, she shall be mine. She is a daughter of the province of Paris, said Ascanio, trembling. And even if she were a king's daughter, Ascanio, you know what my will is capable of. I have attained whatever object I have sought to attain, and I never long for aught more ardently. I know not as yet by what means I shall gain my end, but she must be my wife. Your wife? Colombe your wife. I will apply to my mighty sovereign, continued Benvenuto. I will people the Louvre and Chambord with statues if he wishes. I will cover his tables with years and candelabra, and when I ask no other price than Colombe, he will not heed Francois I if he refuses. Oh, Ascanio, I am hopeful. I will seek him in the midst of his whole court. See, 3 days hence, when he starts for Saint-Germain, you will come with me. We will carry the silver salt box, which is completed, and the design for a gateway at Fontainebleau. Every one will admire them, for they are fine, and he will admire them and will marvel more than the others. I will give him a similar surprise every week. I have never been conscious of a more fruitful creative power. My brain is boiling night and day. This love of mine, Ascanio, has increased my power and renewed my youth. When Francois sees all his wishes gratified as soon as they are formed, then I will no longer request, but demand. He will make me great, and I will make myself rich, and the province of Paris, for all his provinceship, will be honored by the alliance. Upon my soul, Ascanio, I am going mad. Such thoughts make me lose control of myself. She mine, dreams of heaven. Do you realize what it means? Ascanio, Colombe mine. Embrace me, my child. Since I confess it all to you, I dare to listen to my hopes. My heart is calmer now. You have in a measure legalized my happiness. You will understand some day what I mean by that. Meanwhile, it seems to me that I love you more dearly since you have received my confidence. It was good of you to listen. Embrace me, dear Ascanio. But you do not seem to think, master, that perhaps she doesn't love you. Oh, hush, Ascanio. I have thought of it, and then I have envied your youth and beauty. But what you say of the far-seeing designs of God reassures me. She is waiting for me to come to her. Whom should she love? Some courtier fop altogether unworthy of her. Furthermore, whoever he may be for whom she is destined, I am as nobly born as he, and I have more genius. Comte d'Orbec, they say, is Heck's fiancé. Comte d'Orbec? So much the better. I know him. He is the king's treasurer, and I go to him for the gold and silver to be used in my work, and for the sums which his majesty's bounty allots to me. Comte d'Orbec is a crabbed, worn-out old curmudgeon. He doesn't count, and there will be little glory in supplanting such an animal. Go to Ascanio. It is I whom she will love, not for my sake, but for her own, because I shall be the demonstration of her loveliness, so to speak, because she will be appreciated, adored, immortalized. Moreover, I have said, I wish it, and I say again, I never have used that phrase that I have not succeeded. There is no human power which can hold out against the energy of my passion. I shall, as always, go straight to my goal with the inflexibility of destiny. She shall be mine, I tell you, though I have to turn the whole kingdom topsy-turvy. And if perchance any rival should block my way, Demonio, let him beware. You know me, Ascanio, I will kill him with his hand now grasping thine. But forgive me, Ascanio, in God's name. Egotist that I am, I forget that you have a secret to confide to me and a service to ask at my hands. I shall never pay my debt to you, dear child, but say on, for you, as well as myself, I can do what it is my will to do. You are wrong, master. There are things which God alone can do, and I know that I must rely upon him and none other. I will leave my secret, therefore, between my feebleness and his might. Ascanio left the room.